Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. What a 48 hours we have had in the world of F1. All the drama following the Las Vegas Grand Prix, the double McLaren disqualification, but that has buried to some degree the big rumours emerging that Christian Horner may well be back in the paddock very soon indeed. His gardening leave with Red Bull ends pretty much at the start of next year, shortly into the season. Rumour has it that Aston Martin are reportedly going to make a major change that could well have Horner back in the paddock. What does that mean for the rest of that outfit? Adrian Newey apparently is either keen or certainly not opposed to working with Horner again. What type of drivers would they be able to attract in this scenario with all the rumours around Charles Leclerc at the start of next year? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. So much to get into today. Very rarely spotted second video of the day, but it just has to be done. It's race week again. Qatar's in a few days' time and it's all going on. Mick Schumacher is going to IndyCar. That's your first announcement here of the day. That was officially confirmed by the IndyCar series. I'll be driving for RLL Racing next year. So excited to see that. It's been rumoured for some time, and his kind of F1 attempted journey came to a close. He did some good stuff with the WEC with Alpine, but he wants to race single-seaters. IndyCar is the destination. Gabriel Bortoleto, he's getting a 5-place penalty. It was confirmed after the, he went bowling into turn 1. Not the main drama at the end of that race in regard to penalties and disqualifications, but Bortoleto will carry a 5-place penalty. He did attempt, I believe, to apologise to Lance Stroll. We'll get back to Stroll and Aston Martin in the coming minutes. It's also worthy of note that Ollie Bearman, having finished just outside of the points, becomes the first Haas driver in history to score points in 5 consecutive rounds. So he done so in the last few rounds, and then he was just outside the points this time. I think Ocon was 11th and Bearman was 12th, but with the double disqualification, that put both of the Haas drivers into the points and, well, makes a pretty remarkable record. There's also another pretty remarkable record, and you may question how this is even possible, but it has happened, and, well, the last couple of rounds will be very interesting. I think I'll quickly mention before I forget to talk about it, Qatar has been a great track for Oscar over the last couple of years. High grip, higher downforce. It should suit him better, and he's certainly not out of the fight. In fact, he's in a reasonable position now, given that Lando's title bid is still favourites, but it's not exactly clear-cut anymore, and both Max and Oscar are in striking distance. He will feel that he can also get his elbows out and be pretty aggressive, and Qatar has been a good circuit for him in the past as well. Will his recent form continue? We'll see, but he had 8 podiums in a row earlier this year. Now he's had 6 in a row with no podium. That's never happened before. Okay, a longer season makes that more doable, but still quite remarkable. Some of those races where Piastri did well, and others where he didn't. The C6 tyre was on offer this season, but we know that the C6 was not great. Only McLaren were able to really use it and extract similar performance in the C5. We saw there were some weekends where the C5 was it was a medium tyre, but everyone used that in qualifying, or certainly teams preferred to use it. It was the quicker tyre, but teams wanted to keep it for the race, so others went for the C6. The point is that the C6 was not useless. It actually, I think, made things quite interesting, but it certainly didn't do what it was meant to do, right? It was meant to be faster than the C5, but softer, right? But in fact, it was softer, but not necessarily faster. So as a result, Pirelli are reportedly scrapping that for next year, and we're no longer going to have a C6 compound next season, potentially more one-stops, very much so on the way. Red Bull's driver lineup, it's still a major question mark. They said they were going to confirm it shortly after Mexico. That was the rumor a while ago. That's obviously not happened. I think Laura McKees coming in has had something to do with that. But they did say, like, for sure, they will confirm it before Abu Dhabi, and that's only a couple of weeks away. So I believe the decision has been made. Personally, there's still some talk about, it's difficult to assess Yuki's performance, various things. Look, he's obviously being in every single regard a sacrificial lamb. If they need to test something, if they need to experiment with something to gain more understanding, or to help out Max, or, just in terms of setup development, if they want to try something that Max might want to try, they're going to make Yuki do it. That's, they're fighting for the World Drivers' Championship at the end of the day. Even Marco went on to say, all I can say to Yuki is that I apologize, right? I'm sorry. And look, has Yuki done a great job individually? No, I don't think, but also have the team preyed on his own downfall and made numerous mistakes that the team has admitted themselves that have compromised Yuki's performance. I think both can be true, that Yuki's not done a very good job, but also the team has really not helped him at all to do that job. I think they themselves would probably admit that, and that's what Marko seems to do. Now look, is he still going to fire him? Probably yes. I expect it to be Hadjar and Verstappen in the team next year. I think you can make the case for Yuki, but I do expect Lindblad to get promoted. So Arvid Lindblad, he's been doing a number of FP1 sessions this year. There might be another one coming up in Abu Dhabi, but he's done plenty this year anyway. He's had a good time in Formula 2 this season. Not great, but I do think that the recent performances of Ollie Bearman, as we've mentioned in this video, and especially Kimi Antonelli with back-to-back podiums now from P17 on Sunday, okay, to 5th on the road, but P3 after the disqualifications. Antonelli's really come on strong towards the end of the season. Yes, he had a difficult stint in the middle of the year, but the quality of the rookies this year has been pretty exceptional, right? Okay, Bortoletto's had a couple of difficult rounds back-to-back, but Bortoletto, in terms of pace, has been pretty good with respect to Hulkenberg this year. Hadjar podiums in Zandvoort, let's not forget, and outside of that has also been pretty damn good as well. Bearman, after his P4 in Mexico, I think was pretty close to me to taking Rookie of the Year crown in my head, but then all of a sudden Antonelli's come along and dropped some sensational drives in recent weeks. Okay, yes, with a better car, but you know, the better your car is, the better your rivals are, like the more accomplished those drivers are that you're racing, and you know, the more challenging it is to deliver results under pressure in those situations. So the point is that F2 drivers last year, Bearman and Antonelli, who didn't do a fantastic job in F2 last season with a questionable Prema car and Prema team, but everyone knows that F2 is not really the best judge of how good drivers are going to be in F1. It's obviously relevant, but it's not the be-all and the end-all. So the fact that Lindblad didn't have a fantastic F2 season, his Monza weekend was pretty atrocious, but the fact that Kimi also had a difficult stint in the season, but now is very much proving why he deserved to go into that F1 seat straight away when some thought he might need another year in F2, I think that Lindblad's Red Bull will probably feel similarly, that they'll want to put him in now. It was their intention to do so all along, and given the circumstances around F1, I expect them to do that. So if they do put Lindblad in, then, you know, what do? Do you kick Lawson out? Probably Hadjar gets promoted. That is how it appears to me. Now, before we talk about the Horner stuff, there is an interesting dynamic here emerging between Ferrari and Aston Martin in terms of individuals that may go one way or the other. Now, Hamilton had another challenging weekend. He did end up 8th place after all. It was actually Leclerc who was, what, a 10th or 2/10 off the podium because he was 5.19 seconds behind Antonelli. But Antonelli had the 5-place penalty. Hamilton ends up 8th in the end, but still a disastrous weekend. And yeah, it wasn't a good final stint either. Hamilton said, "I feel terrible. It's been the worst season ever. No matter how much I try, it keeps getting worse." And look, we know that Hamilton very much often wears his heart on his sleeve. And if the car's terrible, Hamilton over the final few races, you know, tends to be a little bit checks out. I think that's probably where we are. And he will always wear his heart on his sleeve and be very emotional in these post-race interviews, and that's understandable. But I did think that he went further than I expected with this comment. There's nothing positive to take from today. I'm eager for it to end. I'm looking forward to it ending, and I'm not looking forward to the next one, which implied next season, 2026. And that's the first time I've heard Hamilton say that, because yeah, fair enough, you want to get rid of the Lyco 25 and focus on next year, okay, but for Hamilton to say that he's not even looking forward to driving next year's car, that's concerning. Either that the car isn't going to be very good based on what he's seen in the simulator, or that he doesn't think that his own driving is going to get much better than it currently is. But of course, if he thought that way, then just call it a day, right? But no, he was asked about that, like, do you intend just to quit, right? And he's like, well, no, that's definitely not the plan. Even then, maybe Christian Horner might have a job for him at Aston Martin. The other thing about Ferrari is this. So when he joins, he took that picture next to the F40 famously. And there was a report here earlier this year from back in March that Ferrari was set to design an F44, right? So basically a Hamilton-inspired design. Not like he would precisely design the car, but he would definitely have a role in designing a car that was effectively like his Ferrari in a way, and that was probably something that was, maybe promised or maybe implied that would happen when he initially signed the contract, when John Elkann, Benedetta Vigneault, and everyone was, yes, Hamilton, basically just do whatever you want, put whatever number you want on this piece of paper, we'll give you whatever you need, better offer than Mercedes, XYZ. And then Hamilton thought that he was going to do this, but then it's been cancelled, apparently. So that is something that reportedly has bothered Hamilton quite a lot, that he maybe feels he was promised this thing that he could develop, and now it's been taken away from him. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why he feels frustrated on and off the track at the moment. Vasseur says, look, Hamilton, he's going to say what he likes, he's going to wear his heart on his sleeve. That's okay. You can't blame the drivers in any circumstances. It's quite normal as a human to be upset and be a bit on the emotion. So, pretty funny that Vasseur says, look, you can't blame the drivers for being frustrated about the performance of the car, when John Elkann said something different the other day. Whatever, it's Ferrari. They're not really a factor at the end of the season. It looks almost certain they're going to be fourth now in the championship, right? Because Mercedes have scored well. McLaren had a disaster this weekend. Red Bull, Max, continues to score well. Ferrari have been pretty much nowhere. So it looks like they're going to end fourth in the championship, and they're probably not, I don't expect anyway, going to be too relevant in terms of mixing it up with the McLarens and Verstappen when it comes to fighting for this championship. And I think the Mercedes are the more likely cars to get into the mix there, but, who knows? Maybe Ferrari will come and surprise us. The other big rumour of the last few days is around Charles Leclerc and where he might go and whether Aston Martin is a realistic option. And to be honest, out of all the options, Aston is the one that makes the most sense, unless there's some drama at McLaren and Piastri and Mark Webber, they leave or something. I don't really see that situation changing yet. I think it's not long for this world, personally, but I don't see a seat at McLaren becoming swiftly available. I think that is also very true at Mercedes, and if there was to be a Red Bull seat available, you're not going to want to take it, because probably that means that Max has left, in which case Red Bull aren't doing very well. So the other option really is Aston Martin. They are a team with very strong ambitions. I think Paulo Montoya the other day said that he is convinced they will win a title by 2029 and that they will be incredibly competitive, at least at some point in the next few seasons. Newey seems to be having a good time designing the car as well. That he's made many comments to the effect of he feels kind of similar about this to how we did in 2022. Is the engine going to be any good? That's a big question, but Leclerc reportedly is pretty close to Aston Martin. He has almost certainly held talks with Aston. There have been big rumours about this over the last few weeks. The idea that he would sign now and leave Ferrari now would be probably nonsensical, because what if Ferrari do deliver a good car at the start of next season? But the report is that he will wait 3 or 4 rounds into next year, and the middle, let's say May next year, then he will make a decision as to whether Ferrari have done enough to convince him to stay, or whether Aston Martin are his next direction. And speaking of May 2026, that is when we believe Christian Horner's gardening leave, roughly speaking, comes to an end. This was a major development during the weekends that would have had a lot more attention if it wasn't for the McLaren stuff, but we're going to talk about it now. So rumours started to emerge that Andy Cowell was going to get sacked by Aston Martin. Now, this was a really big deal because Andy Cowell was kind of the mastermind behind the engine plan at Mercedes during their dominant high-performance powertrains era. Now, he has stepped in as effectively here the team principal right now. So it used to be Mike Crack. He stepped into a slightly different role. Andy Cowell is now the front-facing man, really, at Aston Martin. I didn't expect that to last forever. The idea, though, that they're going to sack him was pretty surprising to me. There's other sources that say he's not going to get sacked, he's just going to get moved into a different role that focuses more on the power unit, which, to be honest, is really where he belongs, I think, anyway. He's not maybe, the charismatic leader that a team like Aston Martin might well want to have in the near future. So whether Cal gets sacked or not, that's, very interesting. Frankly, I'd be surprised if they just sack him, and if they do, then it's probably at least in part come from Newey, because we know that Newey is the managing technical partner. He wants full control on what they do. He mandated, when he said to Lawrence Stroll, okay, I'll come and design your cars, that he has full veto power effectively within the technical division, and we know that Newey has, made, maybe he has made with others, some big decisions in terms of how that structure will be done. This may be another one, but the point is that Aston Martin probably want another talismanic figure to help lead their team. They may go another direction. According to Motorsport Italia, Andrea Seidel is considered to be a very strong candidate. The main reason because he's available right now. If you want to get rid of Andy Cowell, you don't think he's quite the right man to lead Aston Martin into this new generation, which is just about to get underway, then maybe you go and get Andrea Seidel. There's no gardening leave issues. Of course, he's been, Audi top man until relatively recently when they got rid of him and put Binotto in charge. He was at McLaren not long before that either. So that's a possibility, but there's also plenty of talk about Christian Horner. The main question, there's a horrifically AI-generated image here, but it's pretty funny, I guess. The main question immediately about this would be, what about Newey, right? Would he be happy? Because there was a rumour. It was even reported that sources close to Newey said that his relationship with Horner and the things that Horner had done had, let's say, soured that relationship. And part of the reason why Newey wanted out of Red Bull was because he didn't have a great relationship with Horner any longer. It felt that he maybe felt that he was not getting the credit he deserved for the work that he'd done within the team and all that type of stuff. So, but a couple of months ago, apparently they went to a Coldplay concert together and they were very good friends for a long time. Maybe they had a falling out, but the general feeling now is that Newey would certainly not be opposed to Horner joining. According to ESPN, Newey would not have a problem working with Horner again. Now look, Horner wants a lot of control. That's the way that he does things. That's why Ferrari would never give him the control that he wanted. Not to say that Horner wouldn't be intrigued by the possibility of working for Ferrari, but it wouldn't be his ideal scenario. His ideal would be to own the team, right? But in the same way that Newey has an ownership stake in Aston Martin, maybe Lawrence Stroll will be willing to give Horner something similar. And look, Horner wouldn't have full control. He would be reporting to Lawrence Stroll in the same way, ideally for Horner, as he was reporting really to Dietrich Mateschitz, right? What Horner didn't like was reporting to, Oliver Mintzlaff or someone who he considered also to be basically an employee. I think that soured things a little bit as well. Now, look, Horner's not the only candidate. We believe, as I say, that his gardening leave ends in pretty much May. We think maybe 4 or 5 races into next season. So if they want to replace Cowell now and they need a new frontman for the time being, it can't be Horner yet. But it could be at some point. And the idea of having Christian Horner lead, it does fit quite well, doesn't it? Because Aston are going to have that image of kind of being the outsider, right? Trying to make it work again in the same way that Red Bull were. And I think it suits quite well. Horner and Newey at Aston with all the resources in the world, with all the drivers at their disposal as well. Because if Horner was there, look, it might give some concerns about Verstappen, right? Max may not want to join in that hypothetical, but we know that Max, if he goes anywhere, it's probably going to be Mercedes anyway. There's a strong relationship there with Toto, so maybe Aston Martin think, well, we could get Leclerc, maybe we could even get Hamilton if we needed him, I don't know, that would be kind of wild, but it's maybe not impossible entirely. So that would be a serious team. The other question is, well, if Cowell's available, maybe could Ferrari swoop him up, right? Like he's got strong knowledge on the technical side of the engine, but also overall knowledge as well. Vasseur is apparently monitoring the situation closely, that if Cowell is available, maybe they could swoop in and replace Enrico Cardile with Andy Cowell. So it's all going on right now. It really is all going on. And we go to Qatar in a couple of days. I'll just mention before I forget, this weekend is a mandated 2-stop race. It's a 57-lap race. The tyres cannot do more than 25 laps on a compound. That's a FIA rule to prevent them exploding, basically. And, well, we'll see what happens. The point is that the guys are going to push hard on the tyres because there's not going to be much tyre management when they're sent to 25 laps. There will be some, but probably not that much. So there's not going to be much lift and coast going on for tyre wear preservation. So, because if you lift and coast for tyre wear, you can also lift and coast at the same time to help your brakes, to help your plank wear, to help your fuel, among other things. But if tyre wear isn't a concern, that's going to be less of a problem, and therefore, well, we'll see how aggressive McLaren can take it in terms of ride heights, right? But at least for Ferrari, it's not going to rain because it's Qatar. So there we go. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.